the screen, let the future begin. Banjo in the boardroom, black glass shine, selling us a watchtower line by line. Hey. Maps in the cloud and a badge in the feed. Every light up lie, every want, every need. Wallets and rumors in the cold machine, counting our lives from the county to the screen. But the wires get loud when the masks come off. Every hidden thing starts to cough. Pigs can't say underground. Pigs can't say when we shut it down. Pigs can't say underground. We move like sparks they never find. Pigs can't say underground. We got names on the bridge and paint on the wall. Boots on the tracks when the black vans call. If they want our data, let them choke on dust. We were born in the underpass, built for the rust. Hear that hum, that's their fear. Every small town lie, cracking clear. Pigs can't say underground. Pigs can't say when we shut it down. Pigs can't say underground. We move like sparks they never find. Pigs can't say underground. Let the screens go blind, let the sirens bend. We don't kneel to the feed, we don't play pretend. From the tunnels below to the valley floor, if they build a cage, we build a door.
Well, that's enough of that. That wasn't even for the right show. That was the show opener for Undergrounder, which we are not doing today. We haven't done an Undergrounder in quite a time, even though I suspect in the near future we may have to do an Undergrounder. Undergrounder, if you don't know, is our show about Tim Ballard, which I think will make a comeback. Hello. We are doing an episode that I do not yet have an opener for, called Framing Tyler Robinson. Excuse me while I drank water. Today we're going to talk about Charlie Kirk. So, if you don't know, there's a new book out. It's called Regime Change. And in this book, they have discovered, come here, William. Sir William, you want to come? You want to be on the show? You want to be a star? Sir William Shakespeare. Ladies and gentlemen, it's I live and breathe, the bard himself, Sir William Shakespeare. That on July 12th, the morning of, or the day of, July 12th, 2025, one Charles Kirk, short for Kirkus, received a telephone call from one Donald the Kiss Trump, emperor and first of his name, king of the Andals and the first men, decided that he would call Charlie Kirk to warn him about the previous night's event, very big event with several right-wing luminaries, including people like Laura Ingraham, I believe, and I mix Laura Ingraham up with other people, if you can believe it. But I believe that I mute. I Cora Horde. There's a Cora Horde button. I said there Alma wins, and then when the light is off, Cora Horde wins. Cora Horde wins. In any event, but he is a chunky kitty. He's a beautiful boy. But so July 12th, Donald Trump calls Charlie Kirk to warn him about the night previous being descending into a Jeffrey Epstein grievance fest. We now know also that on August 4th and or 5th, Bill Ackman, who will become an important person in the story, winds up having a dinner with Charlie Kirk, in which he warns him, together in the company of a handful of other people, that he has committed several offenses against the state of Israel. And Charlie Kirk leaves that meeting, according to people close to him, and namely Candace Owens, who I will remind you is a stopwatch, and so write only twice a day. And then, of course, as you know, within 1 month after that date, he is assassinated in Utah. And so what we're doing here is I want to know exactly with this revelation that Donald Trump gave him a phone call on July 12th that seems to have set in motion a series of wealthy donors warning Charlie Kirk that he's crossed the line. And specifically, Bill Ackman winds up telling him, allegedly, on August the 4th or 5th, that he is to disinvite Tucker Carlson from his upcoming event this next December. Now, I am not a right-wing person myself, and I apologize. You're going to see a lot of right-wing content. Know that I took basically a 5-hour live stream of, oh my God, the most insane stuff you've ever heard, and cut it down to about 30 minutes. We're going to try to get through as much of it as possible. A little under 30 minutes. In specific of the things that I believe, just looking up, just doing a quick search through the entire day of just the mentions of the word Epstein. That's it. All I did was to say, let's look at every time that they mention Jeffrey Epstein, that they even mention the name Epstein. And surely there was more where they allude to Epstein. But I just did a search for the name Epstein, and my holy Hannah, it was 5 hours of very clearly Turning Point USA trying to encourage its followers, especially these young conservative students, to get in to fire Pam Bondi and get Dan Bongino to take over this and to begin releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files. And that's all because of some events we're going to get to talking about, you're going to get to hear about. But I put a quick little mashup together. I hope that you enjoy it. I don't. I did not enjoy listening to hours because I started out with just doing a search, but then I ended up listening for hours to right-wing talking points and then editing it down. Everything here belongs to Turning Point USA, used courtesy of, and the news network NTD and their channel. Thank you very much. None of this is copyright infringement. All of this is for commentary purposes only. I will be here to speak to it. So we will see how long it is before YouTube disagrees with me.
With the results of the Epstein investigation. Clap. How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation? But if crimes were committed against children, and we know who was committing crimes against children, those people have to rot in jail.
Release the Epstein files, am I right? Yeah. Had to do it. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a backfire of biblical proportions. God had other plans. They made murals of President Trump's mugshot. Amazing how blackmail works. Release the Epstein files.
Why not? Why not? Just open the files.
The unfairness of it drives you crazy, and it's particularly galling in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and the whole constellation of people around Jeffrey Epstein.
I should probably take this moment to mention that if this gets seen in the future by anybody out there, it is because probably somebody sent it to you. So if you're here and now watching this and you think this conversation deserves to be mentioned, first of all, maybe delicately caress that subscribe button. I said delicate. Hey, wait a minute. Easy now. Easy, mister. Please forgive the background. I am building a house. And then also hit that share button. Maybe put it on your Facebook. Why not? Let people on Facebook hear something else. Hear some of this content. with a little of this content.
all of whom seem to be getting away with scams. And how do you know they're getting away with scams? I'll tell you how, because they're useless and they're rich. So how do you come to a...
We're going to get to talking about this talk. Did you just hear that? He says, this is the speech that winds up getting Charlie Kirk angry phone calls from the president of the United States and from one of the wealthiest hedge fund managers in the world, and gets him angry meetings with these donors. Now, of course, everybody wants to blame Netanyahu and Israel. This is people in this space. I am very much aware that that's how the conspiracy theories around and so forth around this rumor mill are going. Of course, it's all about people wanting to blame Jews for everything. Okay. There are Jews involved, and Jews are people who are real in the world, and nobody expects any of them to be perfect. Okay. But this is not about them. This is about a phone call between two wasps. This is a phone call between Donald Trump and very allegedly Christian. I'll let you Christians fight that one out. I mean, frankly, it's a little disgusting that this is still something we do have to fight about. And Charlie Kirk, who at that point has recently, allegedly finished a book about how he takes the Sabbath day seriously now as a Christian, and now it's his widow wants to make it an international bestseller. Maybe it already is, but in any event, this is the point. This is the content that is getting Charlie Kirk in trouble. So I said, what could possibly be so offensive? Everybody knows who Epstein was, but you got to remember, this is July of 2025. Okay, so and we're going to get to that as we go through the content here. So just bear with me.
Place where some of the least impressive, most useless people who have no actual skills become billionaires.
So surprised. You don't know enough billionaires, Tucker Carlson. Is that possible, Mr. Slave Money? Is that possible, Mr. Plantation Money? Thank you again, folks, for joining me. Thanks for being here live. Make sure that you share this if you can, because otherwise nobody's going to know anything about it, because, well, that's how the algorithm unworks. I'm building a house. So just be patient. So is it a mystery to anybody that Jeffrey Epstein has surrounded himself with billionaires who have absolutely no skill whatsoever, absolutely nothing unique to contribute to society whatsoever, and yet became billionaires? He finds himself somewhat aghast at that. And of course, he seems to be implying, in my opinion, this is only my commentary, just my opinion, he seems to be implying that Jeffrey Epstein's Israeli connections and or just plain Jewish connections are getting these people rich, who otherwise shouldn't be. That's what I'm hearing here. He will, of course, deny it. No, he won't. He'll never hear about any of this. But what I'm looking at is going, no, he doesn't, whether he's saying this implicitly or whether or not it's true. When you say a billionaire who pals around with Jeffrey Epstein, contributes nothing to society, and yet has become rich, and that these are the people who are ruining society, it's not a surprise that the next day, the host that's going to now feature prominently in this conversation on July 11th gets a call from the president of the United States, who that pretty much exactly describes. Now, it's not a political post. It's not a political conversation. I'm having a conversation about the motives. We have people out here trying to explain the motive of Tyler Robinson to take out Charlie Kirk. And maybe he did, and maybe it's true. But what is the motive? He has a partner who is a furry. And some people don't know the difference between a person who is a furry and a person who is trans, and assume that all people who are trans are violent because they only have one news source in life. But it turns out that's most of the assumptions around Tyler Robinson that we've been presented both in trial or pre-trial and also in the media have been proven wrong. And as soon as you actually put the people who have collected the forensic evidence, the people who are the actual witnesses into the room, put them under the hot seat, nothing about the Tyler Robinson motive makes sense. is there's nothing that he stands to gain by driving 3 to 4 hours north of Washington up to Washington City, up to Utah County, and taking out Charlie Kirk. Either he loses his mind and just doesn't know what else to do, and has just suddenly developed a violent impulse and just is going to do it to somebody, and this is just the first opportunity. Okay, maybe. Could be. It could be. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying there are people who had motives. And as we look at the schedule and the calendar, what we see is that in July, after the 4th of July weekend, there was a release of documents about the Epstein files that Donald Trump ran on, if you remember, the year previously, that he was going to release all of the files. And then when they actually did the first document dump, do you remember that? It was just after July 4th weekend. It was in July 4th, the Independence Day weekend, and the dump was, let's say, exactly that, a dump. It was redacted all over the place. Come to find out, there are millions of pages of documents that have not just been redacted, they have been all out, hidden away. They've been stuffed away. So that's all in the future here where we are. But at that time, there were a lot of people looking particularly to two individuals, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, who had both campaigned with Trump, that they were going to be the ones to reform the FBI, which they claim under the stewardship of the Attorney General under Biden. It's late. Anyway, somebody will. I just had it. Anyway, former Supreme Court justice nominee. Somebody will get it to me. I'm blanking tonight because, well, I'm consuming so much information and it is very late where I am here on the East Coast. Whoop, whoop. Anyways, somebody throw it out to me in the comments. Anyways, so that they were going to reform the FBI and the DOJ and do it in the interest of exposing the alleged client list, which Pam Bondi, when she takes office, says she has on her desk, except note that she doesn't, except know that it doesn't exist. That becomes the position of the FBI and of the DOJ. And very understandably, conservatives who voted to see the Epstein files exposed and thereby exonerating Donald Trump are looking, going, wait a minute. You don't sweep this under the rug. This was important. No. You don't give us half measures. You show us underneath the redactions as much as you possibly can without exposing victims. And they were disappointed, just as everybody was disappointed. And so over the course of the next few months, what do we see? We see more and more information being leaked or exposed, and then ultimately in order to reveal all of the documents, which we now know is not nearly all of the documents. But the more that Epstein files come out, we see rich and powerful people being implicated, and all along the way, you see one rich and powerful individual person who is in the position to make sure that they don't all get exposed. And it does look, perhaps only as a commentary, perhaps I will say this only as my personal opinion, that he definitely doesn't want them to get exposed. And so a phone call to Charlie Kirk happens. I want to just go over a little bit of some of that conversation, particularly a conversation that seems to have irritated Donald Trump from July 11th at the Student Action Summit in Florida, right down the road there, where there was a conversation between Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly. I think it very interesting to note, and maybe this is just my not doing enough research yet, but I did do a quick scan of how quickly after Charlie Kirk's assassination, Megyn Kelly doesn't want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Megyn Kelly doesn't want to talk. If she in any way can avoid it, she doesn't want to talk about anything that she's about to say right now. And and I'll let you decide why that is as we go through some of this footage and hope that we don't get pulled down by the algorithm or the man. Big brother, be gentle. Notice that I attribute the people whose video this is. Thank you very much.
And it has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. Let me just ask you, make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Raise your hand if it matters a lot to you. Raise your hand. So every hand of 7,000 people.
Here's what I think is happening. I don't think President Trump is focused on this. He's focused on a lot of other things which are going great, and he needs to be focused on those other things. Jeffrey Epstein's not the most important thing on his agenda by any stretch of the imagination.
Do you believe that? Who actually buys that? That's what I want to know. Do you buy that? Because I don't buy that. Even if he were completely innocent, maybe he is. Maybe he is being, maligned by people saying that he is guilty by association with Epstein just because they were friends. Maybe that's true. But if that's true, then just show the content. It looks suspicious. And if he's not paying attention to it, I'm going to try and find a good combination of picture and picture here. If he's not primarily concerned with what's happening with the Epstein files, I would say he is not fulfilling his campaign promises to his supporters. And I'm not even one of them. I shouldn't even care, except I, like them, and I think like most of you, was looking to see, would they actually do it? Could it be that Donald Trump is exonerated once all of these records are being revealed? And that we can look at it and find, as he claimed at one point, he is not even in those files. Or if he is, as we were led to believe at one point or another, it's only because he had meetings where Jeffrey Epstein happened to be. They were just not even friends, that he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. All turned out to be lies. And so if Donald Trump would actually fight to release these Epstein files, would that be enough to satisfy his base and us and everybody in the world to say, well, all right, then he's obviously innocent. An innocent man wouldn't reveal it all. So they don't know what's going to happen in the future. They're just disappointed by what has not happened at this point in the past.
So President Trump should be getting the Nobel Peace Prize, and there's all sorts of things he's focused on. I just don't think this has captured his attention quite yet.
Notice that the very audience of one feel of some of this of some of what they're about to say here. There's a lot of mention Donald Trump or mention people in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit or any words to that effect, and immediately some compliment comes out about, now Donald Trump's doing an amazing job on immigration. He's doing an amazing job on this. He deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. If only they could reach into the future and see what you're living through now. And maybe I am wrong about that. Maybe I'm a bad person for even mentioning it. Maybe I deserve to go to hell. I'm sure I do. Here at Hellfire Agency, we don't want to live with a God who hates us. So we'll take hell. And certainly if there is a hell to me, it is anything like sitting here listening to Megyn Kelly and eventually Tucker Carlson, but Charlie Kirk here.
But it needs to, because it's starting to create a real hornet's nest within the administration. And I've got to be honest, I blame Pam Bondi. She is the reason that things are unraveling around this story right now that virtually all of the Republican Party cares deeply about. It's also true that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel had questions about Epstein before they took office, before they went into the FBI. But once they joined the FBI, they said nothing. They've kept their mouths shut.
So we're seeing, Jesse. We watch, don't we? We do watch with bated breath. We watch. Kitty Fang, hope your life is going well. Hope you have security. Keep going. Anyway, it's important to note here. Okay, so throughout the entire event, if I was to find any name more often than Epstein or Trump or Dan Bongino. Bongino comes up. I don't think that YouTube transcribes that name very well every time. I didn't try looking for it. Bongino keeps coming up again and again. Kash Patel keeps coming up again and again because here they've been in they keep saying in office. I don't know if that's technically. I mean, I guess Patel's in office, and I mean they're both anyway in the administration. Since they got into the administration, they're not fulfilling this campaign promise, and it's very much sticking in the craw of the entirety of these young conservatives that Charlie Kirk is speaking to, and he's obviously listening to them. He's interested in their position. Of course, they want to defend the administration, but he also represents these young conservatives who are all, frankly, pissed off.
Shut. Who have you seen? Pam Bundy. She has never missed an opportunity.
Oh, I just wanted to mention this. Okay, so this is why I went on that tangent. So if there's one name mentioned more often than Epstein in here, it's Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi this, Pam Bondi that. In fact, we're going to listen to these two. I'm sorry for this. Launch into like a misogynistic diatribe about Pam Bondi as a woman. I think that's inappropriate no matter who it is. And I don't like Pam Bondi. I don't like any of these people. And but they're definitely avid about that Trump has to fire Pam Bondi or invite her to resign. She eventually leaves the administration in April of the year following, namely this year. So that's pretty key here. Okay, what we're looking for, what about this conversation and or other presentations, whether it's Laura Ingraham or whether it's Tucker Carlson, what about, or Benny Johnson, who if he had an original thought in his head, it would probably smack all the other ideas out. What about this conversation triggered Donald Trump to decide that he was going to call Charlie Kirk and tell him off for this conversation?
Opportunity to go on television and dangle sweet nothings that might be coming your way. It's coming tomorrow. You're going to see something on Epstein. And it was a tease. So you either believe that Pam Bondi was telling the truth then or that she's telling the truth now, but both cannot be true. She was either lying when she went on Fox News all those times saying, I've got it, we're looking at it, wait until you see it, it's horrible. Or she's lying in her 2-page memo that they released on a Sunday night at the tail end of a holiday weekend to Axios, and without signing the memo, dropped it in the dead of night and said, that's it, take the crumbs and be happy. Who put a scandal to rest. I have dollars to donuts. It's gonna come out that there was internal consternation over that memo, and whose name did and did not go on it, and who was and was not behind it.
Okay. Do you see how a comment like that, Megyn Kelly, when you see this, you won't. Do you see how a comment like that might cause the president of the United States to go, are you talking about me? Is that about me? This man thinks everything's about him. You order extra tomatoes in your lunch. He's in your sandwich at the sub shop, and he's like, "What? Is that about how I eat too much meat? Is that what this is about? Is it because of Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what the tomatoes are about?" This man thinks everybody's thinking about him all the time, and so it's pretty clear when you say that somebody in the administration, if Pam Bondi doesn't get fired and Dan Bongino or Kash Patel finally liberated to reveal all of these documents, which again they don't do, that person is obviously trying to hide and cover for Epstein because he knows that he's in those Epstein files, and lo and behold, the next day there's a warning. There's a strongly worded warning that leads to some more events here. I just want to reveal here because it's going to get mentioned. On February 27th of this same year, so this is just a few months before, just the spring before, when the administration is still young, just recently took back over the Justice Department, there was a moment where a bunch of right-wing influencers were invited to the White House to see the President of the United States and meet with him. And lo and behold, it just so happens that Pam Bondi is there with binders that say Jeffrey Epstein investigation phase 1 on them. And when these influencers who aren't expecting to see this walk away from that meeting and get these binders and start pouring through the contents, discover that there is nothing particularly incriminating. There's no client list, and there's nothing interesting in here. And all of a sudden, it sets off this chain of events as they start covering it, saying, wait a minute, are we not going to get this? Are they covering up for Epstein? Who's doing it? And so that's going to come up again and again.
But July 4th weekend after the big, beautiful bill, and you leak it on a Sunday night? What is that?
If you want to leak it and you want conservatives to see it, you leak it to the Daily Caller, you leak it to Fox News, you leak it to Daily Wire, and cash to Joe Rogan saying, if I saw all these tapes of Jeffrey Epstein with little girls, trust me, I would show you. But I haven't seen it. And listen, internally, I'm told there's a bit of like a power struggle between Pam Bondi and another female administration official on who's going to be the top dog. You know, we've got a great bench behind President.
So this is interesting because they're about to talk about something that political maneuver that Charlie Kirk is organizing. Basically, he's trying to introduce that a new candidate for the 2028 election, an alternative to reelecting Trump for an illegal third term, or replacing him with J.D. Vance. He's going to propose that he's trying to angle, it seems, that there is another woman who they can trust, that there's a woman they can trust to be the next candidate and be successful in 2028. And immediately Megyn Kelly thinks that he means her.
President Trump, we've got JD, we've got Marco, we've got Hegseth, we've got a lot of people who could potentially be next up. But there are some women who've got their eye on that role too. And I've been
maybe
told
one of them speaking at this event.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
I'm too happy a person.
No, she also brought in.
Oh, I actually cut it out. Anyways, but he says there, no, I'm actually talking about somebody else. And she's like, oh, okay. Megyn, it's not all about you. It's not all about you, girl.
Some of our best influencers, people that I care about deeply. Jack Posobiec, who's incredible.
I find this very interesting because I did go, there's again, this the names that you hear over and over again. And they do this. They load up their speeches with hammering names into people's heads. You want to listen to blah, 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 and mention these names over and over again to get them into the white space in people's brains, get them talking and reciting these names by rote as much as possible. And one of them is Jack Posobiec. I didn't bring in any of his. Right now, we're just focusing on what triggered a call from Donald Trump. The next day, all of a sudden, after that phone call or around the time of that phone call, the rhetoric around release the Epstein files, you can see it in the content of the next day of this Turning Point USA event. They start clawing it back. Okay, we know we trust President Trump, we trust Pam Bondi, but this whole day before, it was a Pam Bondi has to be fired festival. Donald Trump apparently calls it a Jeffrey Epstein grievance fest, but it was really a Pam Bondi grievance fest. It was about get rid of Pam Bondi, and Donald Trump doesn't want to be told what to do and how to do his job, or maybe there's some other motive why he doesn't want to get rid of Pam Bondi, who again will still continue in that role for nearly a year before she's effectively either leaves on her own volition or was invited to leave.
Incredible. Libs of.
Oh, but one of the names is Jack Posobiec. Jack Posobiec, I didn't bring in his talk from the next day. He's one of the people who's just not having it. The other is this guy, Officer Tatum. Perhaps one of the dumbest people I've ever heard speak and out loud with his voice. Just a nonsense person. Anyways, but that's not the commentary I'm making here. They're the one. A handful of people are like, no, you're not going to censor me. You're not going to tell me what I'm going to say or not say on that stage. Even though Charlie Kirk is leaving this event with legitimate concern that he is a marked man. Something is going to happen here. People are paying attention to him. And it makes sense then to me that we do hear from people like Candace Owens saying, again, maybe at one of the 2 times a day that her stopwatch is right, says that Charlie Kirk was scared, that he was particularly terrified of some of his donors, his former donors. And then, of course, she has to make it about Jewish people, and because, well, that's the soup that you swim in when you deal with
TikTok, Chaya, DC Drano.
Yeah.
And she gave them these binders, and she humiliated them.
Yeah.
They were handed these binders like there was something incredible in them.
It is what you would do to an enemy. The trick would have been perfect had this been Joe Biden's White House doing this to some of President Trump's most loyal supporters and media advocates. What happened was they invited all of them there to say hi to the vice president, to say hi to the president. Sure, they all went, of course. Who wouldn't go? They didn't expect anything on Epstein. So they went, they said hello, and before they knew it, they were pulled into a room with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, and she had made the binders. She bragged about making the cover sheet that read Epstein Files, Phase 1, and she handed them out. And what Liz Wheeler, who was there, told me was that she told them, there's not that much in here, but like another trove is coming. I'm gonna get it from the FBI, but like, here's Phase 1. And in the meantime, then they funneled them out the back of the White House where all the press corps was. And the influencers are standing there with these binders. They didn't even know they were there for Epstein, and they looked foolish through no fault of their own.
Now remember, and this is conservative worlds here. To be made to look foolish is just about, or to be disrespected in any sort of way. And I'm not saying this is wrong. It's not my way, but my way isn't the only way. Among conservatives, to be made to look foolish is worse than being punched in the face. Because at least, if you get punched in the face, everybody sees it, sees the offense, and says that is uncalled for. But if you get disrespected, that sticks in a different way. In any event, I was saying about Jack Posobiec. Jack Posobiec starts out unlike anybody else. Everybody comes up on stage all throughout this event trying to keep these young students, these college students, these right-wing college students, just animated and on their feet and on fire. And particularly, they want them to be on fire for Jesus Christ. There's all kinds of breaks or speakers that just get up, and they're pastors really, that get up there just to scream about how you need to give your life to Christ. And that's just intermittent throughout the entire event. The religious and the political side of a Turning Point USA event is the same side. There's no distinction. There is no separation of church and state. And Jack Posobiec is a preaching man. And he gets up there this next day. I almost regret that I didn't cut it. Maybe we'll cover that next time. But he gets up there and gets into an absolute screaming match. Not a screaming match, but a screaming fit. He gets up there with a cross in his hand, with a crucifix. Well, not a crucifix, I guess. I don't think he's Catholic. So, but like a cross, and starts screaming into the microphone about the reason we're all here. If you don't give your life to God, and these young Christians are just on fire, jumping around in their seats. What it seems to be, anyways, from the camera angle that we see, and then immediately descends into now Jeffrey Epstein. And basically, in a very, very direct way, it seems to me, insinuates as directly as one can insinuate, that if Donald Trump does not fire Pam Bondi and reveal all of the Epstein files, and with immediate haste, that he will regret having supported the Republicans, regret having supported the movement, gotten involved in the movement, and that he will be suspicious of Donald Trump personally. So that's where this whole event is headed, regardless of what Charlie Kirk seems to want it to be doing, which is very clearly, since this is immediately following this memo published by the DOJ, he's trying to respond to the lack of transparency on the Epstein files.
The only fault was they trusted her.
And these are some of our best people that we should have their back. Liz Wheeler's amazing, Jack Posobiec.
Yes.
And they got...
She dinged their credibility for no reason.
100%.
Then she got caught by James O'Keefe on hidden camera saying she had tens of thousands of videos of Epstein.
Again, the very next day, the day that Donald Trump calls Charlie Kirk to tell him, you let that event. I mean, how does he? Do you think Donald Trump is sitting at home watching, watching a broadcast of this? I don't think so. Somebody who has an agenda with this called him and said, "Did you know what they said? Do you know what happened at this event?" And somebody's watching this very carefully. And there was a complaint made, and Donald Trump calls Charlie Kirk to warn him and say, "You let this get out of control." And now it's about Jeffrey Epstein, and it's making me look bad. So that's what we're getting, at least it seems, from the book Regime Change. So in any event, so Charlie Kirk is kind of being notified here. He's being put on the spot because he is hosting these events and charging up this narrative. And the narrative very clearly, again and again, seems to be that he suspects that Donald Trump is innocent, that he has nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein in any kind of incriminating way, and that there's no reason for him to fear releasing these documents, and Pam Bondi is somehow working to subvert Donald Trump and actually trying to cast aspersions onto her own boss because she's not loyal to Donald Trump, or is not as loyal as she could be or should be, that he wants Pam Bondi fired. It's very clear. But by the end of the event, that seems to me, as these speakers get up and especially as they start taking questions from the audience, and we're going to get to some of that here if we get through this whole video here, you're going to see that these young people are suspecting that the reason why Donald Trump is not fulfilling his campaign promise to them to release the Epstein files is because he's afraid he's going to be exposed in them.
And little children. It was like, what? Well, we never heard that. We heard he was into the barely legal type, the like 18-year-olds who look 14, but we didn't hear about children. And then because she was caught once, so she got caught on camera, and she decided to cover up the James O'Keefe slip by then running to a real camera and being like, there are tens of thousands of videos of the children, and I'm announcing it all. So once again, she didn't give.
Do I need to go over how Megyn Kelly feels about underage people? Because it's going to start coming out here. You'll remember that this is the same woman who's come out and said people who want to call, Jeffrey Epstein, a three-syllable word, need to learn to differentiate between girls who are 16, 17 and know what they're doing versus children. And that kind of disgusting rhetoric, which to me it seems is disgusting. I'm looking at this and I'm going, it's not about how old the minors are or young the minors are. That certainly is a factor. It's about the fact that a rich, powerful man can just take what he wants because we have a system where people need money. And some people, as it was pointed out, and we're going to get back to with this Tucker Carlson talk here in a minute, even people on the right are accusing each other of being socialists for pointing out billionaires aren't particularly bright people. They're wicked people generally more often than they are, category creators, innovators, and brilliant people. To be a millionaire is fine. To be a billionaire is not a moral sin. But how many of them don't use their money to do something wicked and cruel, and especially to do it to children?
That to the influencer.
I have a dumb question. Maybe it's not dumb. So she had doubled down on the videos. Unless we're led to believe that Epstein himself personally all these kids, children, or whatever, then isn't the statute of limitations on child like basically infinite?
Well,
so then why are we not indicting the people that were doing the thing that we have on video? Like, what's that all about?
Yeah.
I don't know, Dylan Little. It's a good question. I don't know that it's deep. I think it's up in terms of economics standing. I think that ultimately the cover-up may come down to one human being. I think it actually might. But I mean, how are we to know? I mean, it certainly seems at times that they want to be transparent, and then they immediately start to walk back all of their transparency. Yeah, no, I'm talking about people. Um, I think that I don't think this is a deep state thing. I think that this is a head of state thing. I think Donald Trump himself actually is trying to cover up all of this, and that he will hire and fire. He will hire and fire and shame anybody. And then the question though is about how does this get from angry phone call to Charlie Kirk to there is no more Charlie Kirk.
No, you know this better than I do. So you have to infer Jeffrey Epstein was not the only person involved in that.
Well, no, let me tell you.
See, and this is why perhaps why I hate making this content more than anything else. I do not relish any moment in this life where I agree with Charlie Kirk, but I agree with Charlie Kirk. He has to state the obvious here. And I don't know if you remember when this event happened. I barely remembered it. I'm like, my gosh, that feels like a billion years ago, right? Because of everything since then. He's there at this conference having this conversation where people feel gaslit. Donald Trump's own supporters are feeling gaslit. They're feeling like, I'm sorry, wasn't the whole thing here that Donald Trump is unafraid to release the Epstein files because he knows that he'll be exonerated when everybody looks through them? Isn't that what we were promised? And now they're treating it like there is no client list. They're treating it like that, that Donald Trump, may have promised you that there was something juicy that he could find and dig up, but it turns out there isn't any. He starts telling people, "Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?" What? And he says, "What?" He says, "Why are you still talking about Epstein? It's a nothing burger." And it's these people, especially these young people, their powers, they may be conservatives, and I'm not saying conservatives don't know how to do critical thinking, but young conservatives have obviously learned some critical thinking skills. And these are college students. They're looking around going, this doesn't add up, man.
And that's what she says they found on his hard drives, like he was into this form of off the internet. Separately, they say he had at least 1,000 victims of his.
Notice that this is again Megyn Kelly here to expose Pam Bondi running interference for Jeffrey Epstein like she's his attorney. It's weird. It feels like, I'm sorry, are you in the files, Megyn Kelly? I mean, are you worried about, what are you worried about here? Is it blackmail, or is it just covering up, or are you covering up for somebody else? I don't know. It's like, if you're going to expose. That's where Charlie Kirk is coming in and saying, no, look, he seems to me to be very courageous. And I don't say many nice things about Charlie Kirk because I did not like him as a person. I do not think he deserved what happened to him. I think that I feel that Charlie Kirk deserves justice because nothing should happen to anybody like what happened to Charlie Kirk just for what he said and for who he pisses off. But who did he actually piss off? And here is the moment where I think he actually pretty courageously took a stand and said, no, you're not going to come into this and say, oh, it's about what they found on Jeffrey Epstein's computer because he happens to be one of the, how many people in the world who go on the dark web and buy CSAM. He's like, or download it somehow. He's like, you're not going to make this out to be like he doesn't have billionaire friends who pay for experiences of the most wicked kind, and that we know this for a fact, and that there is a plot to cover it up, and there has been since way back in 2007. So we're going to get into that.
Okay, so but 1,000 victims, unless we are to believe he personally was after every one of those victims, there has to be some other bad guys still alive that are powerful that did something to these children. Why are we not impaneling a special prosecutor to find every single one of these powerful people that went after these kids? Like, what? Why are we putting up with this?
Yeah, I don't know. And I think you'll find out.
Okay, just a second ago, Megyn, just a second ago, you were sitting here talking about, that, little kids, she's out there talking that Pam Bondi's going out there teasing us and that there are videos of little kids. When Jeffrey Epstein wasn't that bad of a guy, he was just a guy who liked the barely legal type. He just liked 18-year-old girls who look like they're 13 and just likes to get a massage with a happy ending, as if that is innocent behavior for a rich and powerful man to do because, well, and it feels very much like saying a 15-year-old knows what she's doing when she's in this situation, and it's gross. And so Charlie Kirk, I think, in a very delicate way, is calling her out. I think he's being political about it, but he wants to state his position, and I think he's stating a position so obvious that it really supersedes political boundaries. Pretty much, I think he speaks for everybody, frankly. And he's taking a rare moment where Charlie Kirk actually tries to take a stand for what's actually right. Maybe he's made so much money at this point; he's made tens of millions of dollars off of these conservatives. Maybe he starts to feel like, you know what? I have enough money, I have enough influence, enough power that one time in my life, now that I'm a father, now that I'm a husband, now that I am an important person in the world, a person that the president of the United States needs to help him get elected or reelected. Now he's standing up and saying, why aren't I being treated like the kingmaker that I am?
Understanding this correctly?
Yeah, no, we all have busy lives, and President Trump has a busy life, and I don't think he realizes how much he's humiliated the administration.
You know the media, you've been around the space of like hyper ambitious women. Analyze her for us.
Well, I think she wants to make a name for herself. What she really wants to be is a star. One trait, and I think it's why Trump chose her, she's loyal to the president. And I get it, he does need somebody loyal, especially in that position. But
did you hear that? Megan, do you hear yourself when you talk? He wanted one thing out of the attorney general, someone who was loyal. And that's appropriate. In what universe is it a priority for the president of the United States to put somebody into the highest law enforcement position in the country on the basis of whether or not that person is loyal to him? That is exactly the thing that you do to make sure that a document that has your name on it stays out of the press, and that a campaign promise that you promise to millions of people can go unfulfilled and they just forget about it. That's what you need somebody who's loyal in the DOJ for. And she's making a case that Charlie Kirk is trying to correct here and say, that's exactly what I'm saying is the problem.
he has a wealth of other options.
Well, I mean, I think Judge Jeanine is amazing. Do we like Judge Jeanine? Everything else likes Judge Jeanine.
Did not age well. Did not age well, that comment. Charlie, you're not around to hear me say this, but you're not around to see what happened with Jeanine Pirro.
Judge Jeanine would be brilliant. Harmeet Dillon would be brilliant.
So you're calling for Pam Bondi to resign or to go, but can you please tell people the breaking news? According to reports that you have verified, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino will resign if what does not happen?
If she doesn't go.
So
I only have it on Bongino.
It's all over X though.
No, I know, but let me just tell you what my reporting is. Bongino, it's Bongino or Bondi. He's not
Who
saying.
would you guys prefer, Bongino or Bonnie?
Okay, now we're getting into this Dan Bongino thing. Again, I don't like any of these people, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong. And now we are tuning into this from the future, discovering that this conversation apparently is the point where Charlie Kirk's life seems to go off the rails because he has the courage of his convictions to try and speak truth to power and actually get something done here. He wants to get Pam Bondi out of the way, and he wants Dan Bongino, who was a right-wing podcaster, apparently was an FBI agent at one point, if I remember correctly, and has been telling people that he knows exactly how to get to the bottom of the Epstein files. And once you get Donald Trump elected, I'm going to be there. I'm going to do it. Does he do it? No, he does not. We are here in the future to say Dan Bongino got upset. He got angry. There were all kinds of reports about him and Kash Patel clashing. There's all kinds of stories about him wanting to go to the press, wanting to leak to the press, wanting to go to the MAGA base and tell them it was all a lie. They're not going to reveal this stuff. This stuff is real. The classified stuff is really damaging. He seemed pretty upset. They want Dan Bongino in a position where he can fulfill this campaign promise. And Pam Bondi's, they want her out of the way. That doesn't happen. Like I said, April. It's still April of the next year, which is this year we are in now, 2026, when Pam Bondi finally leaves the DOJ and leaves the administration. They're calling for Dan Bongino to reveal what he has learned already about the Epstein files, if anything, even if it is that they won't give him the Epstein files. And this is July of 2025. Dan Bongino ends up leaving the administration in January of 2026. And just so that we're clear on the rest of the things that get said about Dan Bongino after that, his silence when he was in the administration, where he doesn't make public comments, he toes the company line. He says, "What you're not going to like this, but Jeffrey Epstein himself, and I know it because and they don't." He's like, "I'm going to have to tell you things you don't want to hear." And then the rest of it, you have to understand this is all classified and I can't, it's all top secret. I can't tell you anything. And since then, he has not called out anyone in this administration. He left the administration and it has been mum. As someone tell me I'm wrong, maybe I just don't follow his work very closely, but they were counting on this guy to expose everything. And so far, nada.
You know why? Because Dan understands MAGA. Dan's part of the MAGA movement. Dan's been an important piece of it and a mouthpiece for like really important ideas and an advocate and a fierce.
Dylan, the answer, this is a good question. The answer, I believe, and the more I read about Donald Trump's administrations, I think I've read maybe 4 books so far, including I'm listening right now to the audiobook of Regime Change, Maggie Haberman and what's his name? Jonathan. Yeah, anyways, their new book, it's pretty wild. But the answer to your question, what do you think Kash Patel will be fired? The answer is not one day before Donald Trump thinks that he will betray him or make him look weak. And at that point, I think it's a legit concern for Kash Patel and anybody else to be concerned that to be fired would be the best case scenario to happen to.
Warrior. He's been in the trenches. I mean, with all due respect to Pam Bondi, she's been in Florida. She represented the president. It's nice. But do you think she really gets MAGA? I don't think so. We're about to lose Dan for sure. And maybe Kash too, if she doesn't go. This could actually cost Trump in the midterms. We need to make a smart choice right now. We can't lose any of the MAGA base. And yet today,
Kash Patel is now a year later. This is now August of the next year. This has been 1 year since this conversation happened, and since Charlie Kirk got in trouble with it with the most powerful man in the world, arguably, and over this conversation and this event, and particularly the Tucker Carlson speech, which I'm about to cover here in a moment with you, if we don't get taken down, if the live doesn't get forced off the air. But anyways, but where was I going with that? It's been 1 year, and none of what they're asking for has been fulfilled.
today, as we came here, there's a piece in Axios that reflects very poorly on Dan, alleging Dan only free.
Oh, that's where I was going with that. Kash Patel. Someone tell me, at what point has Kash Patel fulfilled on Donald Trump's promise that the FBI is going to investigate the Epstein files and drop a bombshell of what of information, that will exonerate Trump himself? So far, you hear him towing the company line all the way around and telling conservatives things they don't want to hear, like Epstein exited the world of his own accord, and which maybe is true, maybe isn't true, but that's not what this base wants to hear. This base, they may be good critical thinkers, or at least better than your average bear, but they do definitely believe that something is amiss with Jeffrey Epstein, and the narrative of his sudden demise.
Doubt once he saw in this memo that people weren't responding well to the missing minute of the tapes of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. Do you go? My point is not to weigh in on the truth or falsity of that. It's false. But it is to point out that's clearly a Bondi leak. To Dan.
You notice what she's insinuating there. She says it's false that there's something in that missing minute. That's what it seems to me that Megyn Kelly is saying here. That she's sitting there going, everybody's looking for a conspiracy theory. This is all very well explained. And Jeffrey Epstein was a bad guy and he took himself out. And you can see the skepticism on Charlie Kirk's face. Also, as you're listening, look at Charlie Kirk's face. I know that it's tempting to look at Megyn Kelly because she's cute, but and he is not. Well, I don't know. I don't think he is. But look at his face and notice him turning. He doesn't turn to look at the whole audience. And I'm not going to read too much into this, neither should you. He looks at one person. And I very much would like to know who it is.
His credit, he went on Fox a couple of weeks ago and he got beaten up pretty good for this and said, I think Epstein himself.
I'm open to it if that's true. Why don't you just tell us the prisoners' names who are on the same cell block as Jeffrey Epstein?
There's a lot.
No, that's BS. I'm sorry. The President of the United States figured out whether they get HIPAA for federal prisoners, because all of a sudden if we find out some of these prisoners had suspicious intel ties, what I'm getting at is at some point, we want answers at some point.
Yeah, answer the questions. That's it.
I mean,
Okay, so can I just clarify here something real quick? I don't know what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, but do I buy that this man whose life, quickly spiraled out of control as he began to realize that his association with powerful people in the end was not going to keep him out of prison for the rest of his life, decided he didn't want to see the rest of that life and met his own ignominious end by his own hand? Do I buy that happened? I do. I buy that 100%. Why wouldn't he? I mean, maybe he avoided it. Maybe we know that he got depressed. Sometimes he had emotional disturbances because he was an emotionally complicated person. I mean, it makes sense. Does that mean I fundamentally disbelieve that narrative was false? No, I don't disbelieve it. I just don't immediately believe it. So I would be inclined to say, yeah, I mean, the narrative seems to be that he took himself out. But I'm open to the possibility that I could be wrong about that. I don't know what I don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. But what's interesting here is Charlie Kirk, 2 months before he was assassinated, starts talking about whether or not Jeffrey Epstein allegedly may be alive, or whether or not Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad, and or whether or not Mossad took him out. And this is the day before an angry phone call from Donald Trump saying, shut the hell up about Jeffrey Epstein.
Ann and Cash talked about Epstein all the time when they were in my business.
Well, that's the point. Is that hasn't been a shtick of mine.
Mine either. I've talked about it when it's bubbled up.
Right?
Same. And if we have some ring of running around, outside of Hollywood, we need to know. It's about transparency. One of the main reasons that we voted Trump in was because we wanted real answers on real stories, and we didn't want to be BS'd anymore with a bunch of nonsense from our government that treated us like a bunch of stooges. Right? Thank you.
So you're talking about the Biden administration there. Does that feel like the Biden administration to you? Or does that feel like the Trump administration? Again, vote how you want. I'm a spiritual leader for atheists. I don't tell people how to vote. I don't discriminate by how people vote. And frankly, I don't think it's that interesting. But she just showed up pretty solidly here, in spite of making a lot of comments that feel rather fishy about at what point in a minor's life they share in some of the guilt. I mean, like Megyn Kelly would make a good Mormon wife. She'd make a good Relief Society president. I think she'd be the one to get up there and say, President Boyd K. Packer said, sorry, hate to bring in a Mormon thing in there, but I'm just throwing a little Mormon thing in there. The next Mormon, I have to, or I lose. I have to, or I get a menacing call from John Glenn. Is what happens.
And I believe Trump is still loyal to that mission.
What else to get us back on track towards transparency? I think the DOJ should immediately move to unseal all the Epstein documents in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. everything.
I think every file should be released to the public the same way as the JFK files. Let the American people decide.
I don't know. Or it's possible, I just got to say this for the record, it's also possible that Jeffrey Epstein was an absolutely disgusting predator who loved just the barely legal types and did take advantage of them and didn't actually farm a bunch of girls out to a bunch of men. It's possible. And I'll say this on it. I know somebody very close to the case, who I trust implicitly, and that person has told me from the beginning that that's what happened. That Epstein was very into the girls who looked like 13, but he knew he had to hire the ones who were like 17, 18 to come in and give him massages that had the so-called happy ending, and that was really his thing. And there are over 1,000 of those.
I get that, but I think what people
Did you hear it? Did I not just encapsulate that pretty well for you? It feels like she toes the line for MAGA base, the MAGA base back in the day when MAGA wanted, when Trump supporters wanted Epstein exposed and all of his associates exposed. That's true, I did. Which has nothing to do with Cora Horror. It has to do with Zizram, I believe. Anyways, but she like toes the line and then turns and tells MAGA how they feel and does a pretty good job describing how these people feel about Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts, I think. But then slips in this narrative that says, let's be rational about it. For Pam Bondi to say that there are thousands of videos of little kids, of smaller children, than, teenagers, it feels a lot like don't say, say Hebo, because, there's a difference. And what are you saying right now? It's not a surprise, I think, to anybody, even if she's making a good point. I don't think it should be considered a surprise to anyone that the people that she's talking to feel like they're not buying it. This whole Jeffrey Epstein was bad, but he wasn't that bad routine she's giving. And Charlie Kirk is taking a stand. I think that she's concerned. It seems to me that she's concerned in a way that Charlie Kirk is not. Charlie Kirk is being bold to say what everybody's thinking.
People want to know is what other powerful people were involved.
Yeah, we've heard all the names who went to Epstein Island. Who went to Epstein Islands? Who specifically went on the plane?
Very important to say. In July of 2025, we had not heard all the names. That we had not heard nearly all the names of people who had been to Epstein Island. We did not see the miles and miles of documents. And the names that get mentioned, and part of why I think it's important to note how Megyn Kelly, her tone changes after this event, and particularly after Charlie Kirk's assassination. All of a sudden, Megyn Kelly changes her tone. All of a sudden, Dan Bongino changes tone. All of a sudden, Kash Patel, I don't know that Kash Patel has kept any of his previous rhetoric from before being sworn in on anything. All these conservative firebrands start changing their tune as soon as Charlie Kirk is gone from this world. All of a sudden, it does feel like people go, wait a minute, what exactly is going on here?
That's what Alan Dershowitz is saying, and he's so right about this. He was dragged through the mud by that Virginia Giuffre. And he did not Virginia Giuffre. It was a lie, okay? Who Jeffrey knew because Alan represented him when he got arrested for transportation of a minor in prostitution. And Alan, he did represent Epstein. That's not great. He represented OJ. Isn't that worse? Like, that's what criminal defense.
There's this line in the Book of Mormon musical, third Mormonism reference so far, where one of my son Elijah and I, one of our favorite songs we listen to probably almost every day now, now that we're out here in Appalachia, living our best life and building a house, called Spooky Mormon Hell Dream. And in Spooky Mormon Hell Dream, Elder Price is having a nightmare that any Mormon missionary can tell you about. The most terrifying thing, one of the most terrifying things you'll have for years. I had them for years after I was no longer Mormon. I would have spooky Mormon hell dreams. But he sees in his dream, he goes to hell and he sees Genghis Khan and Adolf Hitler and Johnny Cochran. And this is right after he has left his companion, which is like a huge no-no. I mean, they treat it like a joke in the play. And it is funny when in retrospect. But when you were a missionary, when I was a missionary, that was no joke. It's like, you don't talk about people leaving their companions. That's so wrong. That's such a sin. And so he's left his companion and he's having this existential crisis, and he falls asleep and has this spooky Mormon hell dream. And one of the lines in the song, Johnny Cochran, all these sinners are listing off these horrible things that they've done, that they did in life. And it gets to Johnny Cochran and he says, I got OJ free. And that was his big sin. And then, of course, Bella Price breaks into, that's nothing. I'm way worse than you. I left my companion. They're like, and then Jesus calls him a dick. And it's glorious. It's great. Great song. But it feels like that. It's like, did you just say that Alan Dershowitz defended that his career should be more controversial for having defended O.J. Simpson and gotten an acquittal and helped Johnny Cochran get an acquittal? First of all, Johnny Cochran deserves all the credit for that. Well, I don't know. Maybe what's his bucket Shapiro deserves some. But Alan Dershowitz, I don't know. That O.J. Simpson is worse than Jeffrey Epstein? Who are you fighting for, Megan? It feels weird. It feels gross.
Please do. I don't judge it. So in any event, that's how he knew Jeffrey. They weren't buddies. He wasn't like Bill Clinton palling around with him everywhere. So she got accused. She accused him unfairly. But he is saying now he thinks the entire files should be opened, even if other men like Alan get swept up into like a web of like, you did it, and then.
What's interesting to me, though, as this is going through, and as I was watching this, is how frequently names are being mentioned here about, we got to get so-and-so to work on the Epstein files. And they mention a name that we now know is in the Epstein files. Alan Dershowitz is all over the Epstein files. He's all up in those files. Yes, mainly it is legal advice that Jeffrey Epstein is seeking from him, or that he is giving when he is, or seems to, or imply some legal advice, or it's something related to Harvard University, which has an interesting place in the Trump administration so far. They basically practically shut down this university where so many people, right and left, I'll make this a part of this comment. I don't know that that's an exact figure. 99% of the people in the files are Republicans. There are a lot of Democrats in the Epstein files, and surprisingly highly placed ones. This man played both sides against the middle, and he had one of the most prominent atheists in the atheist space, Lawrence Krauss, on his side, because Lawrence Krauss needed money. And Lawrence Krauss, apparently, we now know, and though I resisted it for a long time, because I'm like, no, I love Lawrence Krauss. And I just can't imagine. But then when I saw the text message conversations between him and other conversations, emails between Lawrence Krauss and Jeffrey Epstein, I was startled. Up until that point, I was like, okay, so the ASU Origins Project, which I was a big fan of, am a big fan of, that Lawrence Krauss headed up, it needed money, and most, rich people putting their money into science is a pretty rare thing. But Jeffrey Epstein liked to hobnob with intelligent people, thinking that it rubbed off on him somehow, or at least that's what it seems to me. And it's like, you don't look. It seems very clear to me, Jeffrey Epstein, he was completely disinterested in politics. What he was interested in was making connections in every side of the political spectrum, every side of the religious spectrum, every side of the cultural spectrum. and getting information and trading in information. And one of the people they're going to mention who speaks at this event, by the way, and makes one mention of Steve Bannon the next day after or about the time of on the same day as this call where Donald Trump berates Charlie Kirk for allowing Jeffrey Epstein to be talked about at this event. That person is Steve Bannon. And they make there's all this commentary about Steve Bannon, is going to get to the bottom of this. No, I think probably no person, with the exception possibly of Donald Trump, is mentioned more times in the Epstein files than Steve Bannon. And certainly there's almost nobody who has more direct contact with Jeffrey Epstein than Steve Bannon, and talks about dirtier stuff than Steve Bannon. And yet he is speaking at this event. So Charlie Kirk is surrounded by sharks in this moment.
Let them rehabilitate themselves the way he did. Let them show the evidence of, I actually wasn't even in the country when I got accused.
Do you think there's any intel community involvement in this?
Okay, before we get into that, and look, I'm not going to rule out that Mossad was involved in this. It seems pretty clear to me, I think, like to most people, that if you follow this story, that Jeffrey Epstein probably was a Mossad agent himself, and that he probably had connections all over. He very closely knew the former prime minister of Israel, and he would jockey around job positions for associates of his in the Israeli government, in Netanyahu's Israeli government, in Likud, through an opponent of Likud, through Netanyahu's political opponent, who can apparently make a phone call and get an American a job that gets him out of America and gets him to, I guess at that point, Jerusalem, at the drop of a hat. And Steve Bannon's in the middle of it. Steve Bannon is the person he's talking to. Steve Bannon says, hey, this guy who works for me, he needs to get the hell out of Dodge. Can you get him a job in the Israeli government? And like the next week, he's got one. He's there. And he calls Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein works both sides. Meanwhile, the woman who heads up Barack Obama's White House legal counsel at that time is sending messages to Jeffrey Epstein that are downright flirty about how they're going to go, they're going to meet, they're going to do, observe Shabbat together or something like that, or I think Passover maybe. But they're going to, they're going to attend these events together, and how much she misses him, and how much, and it's gross. And he's working all sides of this. He's not interested in politics. He's interested in connections, and he's interested in blackmail. He's interested in dirt on people. And a lot of the people that that get exposed ultimately in what we have of the Epstein files are connected to this event right now.
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I am convinced, based on my own sources and my own reporting on this story, he wasn't one of ours.
So he was an American, which leads basically three options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Hopefully my live didn't get taken down. Guys, throw me out a comment if you can still hear me. Things kind of blinked for a minute there on my end. Might be just fluctuation in my own internet. Maybe I could close down some tabs and such. Sorry. Okay. In any event, so that's curious. Okay. So did Mossad take out their own man? I mean, it's not beyond them to do. But what's interesting again is that while they do this, and it makes total sense to me, even if Donald Trump is completely innocent in anything regarding Charlie Kirk's end, that he would be pissed that they're talking about the Israeli government taking out one of their own agents during the Trump administration. As remember that Jeffrey Epstein met his ignominious end during the first Trump administration. And so, people, at the time would say, well, the Clintons, blah, 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 blah. Clintons, nothing. It was the Trump administration. And so, and Donald Trump was one of his associates. I mean, why are we saying Mossad and not CIA? Why are we, is it beyond our government to do anything that they're suggesting here? It must be the Israeli government. Although they do seem to insinuate more than once that they think it's actually maybe the American government, which is to say that somebody in the Trump administration either took out or rescued, as they are implying, Jeffrey Epstein.
So what does that mean?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
what does
possible
that
that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, I'd say about half the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing.
Does Megyn Kelly believe this? I'll take her at her word. She does. Or is she just really good at reciting to Charlie Kirk's base exactly what they want to hear? She seems to me to be straddling that line through this whole conversation. And again, this is only about, I think, maybe 10 minutes of what was solidly, I think, maybe a half hour of conversation. I cut a lot out.
It could be. I really don't know.
I have no evidence to suggest that.
No, me neither. I did the one time Pam Bondi was asked a question about this at the cabinet meeting on Monday. She was like, and as for whether he was an agent, that I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I'll get back to you. You haven't looked into it? What do you mean? You haven't? So that was kind of a fishy answer.
That really got him. Like I said, it's tempting sometimes. I think Megyn Kelly is cute. I'll get some of my friends to call me or text me and say, I can't believe you said that on air. I think she's cute. It's tempting to look at her. Look at Charlie. Watch Charlie's reactions.
Megyn, remember Alexander Acosta in 2007, he said,
oh boy, howdy. Oh boy, howdy. Did he say that? I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I do not like Charlie Kirk. I do not like Turning Point USA. I don't like any of this perspective. So I had not heard any of this other than like little clips they show maybe on MSNBC back then, which I don't even like MSNBC. But I remember this event where I'm like, haha, that's funny that even the MAGA base, they want the Epstein files released and it's not going to happen. And they're pissed about it. Even they see through it, whatever. And that's what I knew. I had no idea until like this week when I was listening to 5 hours of this shit, that Charlie Kirk stood up and said this quite so boldly. And he brings in Alex Acosta. If you don't remember this, well, he's going to go over it. And I'm like, dude, and you wondered that Donald Trump gave you a screaming phone call the next day?
He was told to treat Epstein carefully because he was an intel asset. That was one of Trump's cabinet secretaries who was literally a U.S. attorney 3 hours from here in Florida. He said that himself.
Well, and let me
clarify here, because in case you didn't follow that story very clearly. He didn't do it well. This guy, Alex Acosta, didn't do anything for Jeffrey Epstein that I know of while he was in the Trump administration. He was the guy who was supposed to catch Epstein in 2007, and they're going to go over some of the failures on that part that seem to be the result of some kind of corruption. And I think that's pretty clear to everyone. Again, that is an opinion that I think many share, including many of you. But that is the kind of thing, because Alex Acosta then winds up working his way up the money ladder and political ladder after basically virtually letting Epstein off the first time, and empowering Epstein to return to something like the life he had before, with just having to admit that he was convicted of these crimes involving minors. And but generally gets to live his life, go to his island, fly to his homes in New York and New Mexico, make money in insane amounts, travel the world, jockey positions in presidential administrations, and elbow with Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor. I mean, no, Kagan, Justice Kagan, they're close friends. They had exchanged emails. Okay. So it's like here, they're bringing up things. He's bringing up things that if you don't want an angry phone call from Donald Trump, at the very least, you shut up about this stuff. And Charlie Kirk, I have to give him credit where credit's due. He's speaking truth to power here. He's speaking boldly on this. And that's a pretty rare thing for Charlie Kirk, who lies on just about pretty much everything.
Let me tell you the consequences of that. His search warrant on Jeffrey Epstein's residence was very narrow. It was very, very narrowly tailored. And to this day, that's what the FBI is stuck with. Like, we did not find the magic documents or photos or evidence of anything. And why not? I don't know we'll ever know why not. I'm not sure we'll ever know, but
I'd say we know already. But maybe I'm wrong. But what's interesting here is that, again, this is rewinding back 1 year ago. This is July of last year. Charlie Kirk will be dead in 60 days within 60 days of this conversation. And his life descended into absolute chaos as far as I can tell. I don't know how much I know. Bill, this conversation that we're going to get to talking about where in August, days before he ends up at UVU, and what happens to him, maybe has something to do with Tim Ballard, maybe doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. I said maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Do you? Do you know? Tim Ballard was in the area, according to Phil Lyman. I'm just saying Phil Lyman said that he was there to meet with Tim Ballard. Weird. I mean, I understand Tim Ballard at that point lived in Saratoga Springs or whatever, but Saratoga Springs or Eagle Mountain, I think. Anyways, Saratoga Springs or Eagle Mountain is Saratoga Springs or Eagle Mountain, not freaking Provo, not Orem. Anyway. Charlie's speaking truth to power. It's not a surprise to me that he's getting called out here.
I guess I care less about that than I do about just open the books and be fully.
No, I don't want to. Alexander Acosta himself talked about Intel asset.
Yep.
And you have to wonder that.
Because President Trump, I understand fully, he doesn't want to offer a scalp in response to this. And I get it. He doesn't want to look like he's sold out his people. And he's loyal too. He really is. He's very loyal to the people who are loyal to him, to his credit. But I think he's also extremely smart. And he can read a room better than anybody. And I think once he realizes, thanks to an event like this, et cetera, that this does matter with the base, this is not a nothing burger for them, for all the reasons we've discussed, I think he'll decide she's a goner. It's just a question of what the excuse is, more time with her family, right? And she'll be sayonara. If I were Trump, I would say all three of you are going out and holding.
Okay, now this is where Megyn Kelly starts to get bold and speak truth to power. We do have to make some commentary, or else the commitment that I had made that we're only playing the video for purposes of social commentary doesn't hold up. Okay, so we have to make. Not a problem. I can be a bit of a dick, so it's not a big deal. But now you see that Megyn Kelly is going to throw out. I'm just going to mention here. Okay, so here we are 1 year later. One person on this stage is with us in the world, and one is not. And the one who is with us in the world is the one who throws out every time she throws out a criticism of the administration or a Pam Bondi, generally is going to come back around to talk about how she is absolutely certain that Donald Trump is completely innocent, and that he's bold and great, and he has amazing hair, and he's just about the best president ever in the history of the world, maybe the king of heaven. He might be Jesus Christ.
Oppressor. Everybody's welcome, all comers. And you're not leaving until, we're down to the Jim Acostas of the world. They do need to wrap it up. It should be wrapped up. In a perfect world, Trump will say, all three of you get out there, have an open presser. Anybody can answer questions, and just answer them all honestly. Short of that, we could get to, today's Friday, we could get to Monday with Dan gone, possibly Cash gone. Again, my reporting says Cash is staying. Others says he'll go if Bongino goes. I think one of them knows we have a country to run, and we really do need one of them there.
No, I think we need both. I mean, I'd hate to lose them both.
So about this conversation happening both in the chat and in the video about agencies, intelligence agencies, right? I think it's important to remember when we talk about what values are involved in making decisions about the future of individual persons in this world, that the man that Donald Trump had once in campaigning for president said that man, his father, orchestrated or participated in the assassination of President Kennedy, became Secretary of State in his administration. I'm just saying. Donald Trump don't care. He does not care. His base does not care if somebody worked in the CIA. And why should they? Republicans elected a president in George Herbert Walker Bush, who was the head of the CIA at one point. And we know that he did a bunch of shady shit before he was vice president, before he was president. People will overlook that. People assume, yeah, in this world, we have Secret Service, we have clandestine operations, and they have to do nasty stuff. It's when somebody pisses off the wrong person and then ends up gone from the world that we stop and look around and say, do we put people into power? Do we trust too much people in power who we know have done some pretty shady things?
I do too.
And let's play this out for a second, though. Let's say Bongino leaves. Well, he's not going to keep his mouth shut. So
he's got one of these too.
He's got a big one of these.
Yeah.
And he will come out immediately.
Will be me. Do you want to say it? You guys say it at home. Everybody say it. We'll say it together. We'll say it together. 3, 2, 1. That's what she said.
Immediately, and he will tell his side of the story, which will not help the integrity of the administration.
No.
Right? So if you let Bongino walk, you will have somebody for years that will be bitter towards the administration. And all of us
He's not going to want to hurt Trump.
No, but he'll tell the truth and we will lose. We will be like, if Bongino can't go and fight and solve this thing, if Dan Bongino, who's like one of the greatest patriots we have, cannot go and reform the FBI with Kash Patel after we win a popular vote majority,
right?
But I know for millions.
Okay, I cut off a part of that. I'm not sure why. It's a bit of a hatchet job, this edit. But again, speaking from the future, that didn't happen. And it was forgotten about. Because when people don't have it being recited into their ears over and 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 over again, all the rest of the crap that happens in life takes over. And Dan Bongino left the administration. Yes, he did. Did he leave it in July when he was basically threatening to? He did not. He stayed through July, through August, through September, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, then through October, through November, through December. And then after December, and we start getting some actual dumps of the major revelations of the Epstein files, he leaves the administration and has been, as far as I know, somebody told me otherwise. Maybe I just don't follow conservative media well enough. My understanding is that he now has a podcast where he talks about gardening tips or something. I don't know. But he doesn't talk about the Epstein files, as far as I know. And he doesn't talk about Donald Trump's administration. He doesn't talk about the work he did at the FBI. And apparently would rather people forgot that he promised to expose all of Epstein's friends and then threatened to leave in disgust when it didn't happen, and then didn't leave, stayed, towed the line. Went on Joe Rogan's podcast, told Joe Rogan something he didn't want to hear, which is that Jeffrey Epstein was responsible for his own demise, as reported. And, as far as we know, he's just played company man ever since. I mean, how disappointed would Charlie Kirk be?
Millions of people, that will be met with just a sigh of cynicism.
But think about it,
You know
Charlie.
what I mean?
Yes, 100%. And you think about, like you mentioned, Janine Pirro would take no prisoner.
Again, now she's finally getting her moment in the spotlight, right? Now she's in the hot seat. Everybody gets their turn at it. I was listening to this book, to Maggie Haberman and what's his bucket's book, Regime Change. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting his name. I'm tired. But they talk about how there was this moment where there was this where Lutnick, right, who's in the Epstein files, very dirty in the Epstein files, and in the Trump administration. Now we know. I mean, it was pretty well known by then. And Bessent, who is corrupt as Scott Bessent, who seems pretty corrupt as the day is long. Not a big surprise there. But they start and Peter Navarro, all in the Trump administration, start feuding, and it gets to a point where I believe it's Bessent and Lutnick get into it about the tariffs and about how badly they're botching the promise of tariffs and raising tariffs and Liberation Day. And Donald Trump is just getting in their way because he mainly only trusts his own instincts, and it causes them to fight all the time. And whoever can flatter Donald Trump's ego more is going to win, generally speaking. And so Lutnick gets into it with Bessent, and it gets so bad that they start throwing they get down to fisticuffs, and they start throwing punches. I mean, they start beating the shit out of each other. Well, I mean, they start to do it as cordially and as delicately as they can, being that they're in the West Wing of the White House. And when Donald Trump heard about it, they say, when Donald Trump heard that this fight had broken out, where they got down to fisticuffs, his only question was, who won? This is a conversation where if Charlie Kirk were paying close attention to Megyn Kelly and what she's doing here, is that she throws out a bone to cover herself every once in a while to be able to say, I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. President. Did you not hear when I said that you blah, 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 blah? Didn't I say da, 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 da? I don't understand what you people at the network are talking about, even though she doesn't work for a network anymore. And apparently we're supposed to all forget that just the year before, Megyn Kelly was implicated in a wide scheme of conservative podcasters and independent media personnel who were taking money from Russia.
She's totally confirmable too. She'd be great in this role.
Watch what happens.
Matt Gaetz can't do it. Yeah, I mean, he could do it, but
he's not confirmable.
Yeah, he's not confirmable.
Matt Gaetz for a special prosecutor, that would be very interesting.
That would.
Are you freaking kidding me? Man, hindsight, am I right? I mean, really? Matt Gaetz. This is how long ago this was. It was only a year ago. And you have people screaming out Matt Gaetz for Attorney General of the United States. Once again, this was known at the time that Matt Gaetz had trafficked minors for sex.
Be fun to watch.
Matt Gaetz with a government corruption special prosecutor.
Anyway, there are other people who could take over that role, and just think about it, because I can see the.
What? Again, I'm sorry to say this. This is not a political commentary. This is more a religious commentary, spiritual. This is speaking to a spiritual matter here, and okay, not a political one. People who claim to embrace family values love them. A person who likes the young ones. They love them. They love them. Matt Gaetz, it should have been the proof.
Untenability of Dan and Cash staying effectively working
Joseph
for
Smith,
Pam.
too. Okay, here we go.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I don't know. This happens sometimes with microphones, but I can't tell in this instance. If a microphone gets really overmodulated, it can start dropping out, especially ones that have Bluetooth connection and stuff. They can start dropping signal if you scream into them too loudly. And right now, notice you see these fireworks here. Does that look familiar? I mean, we're talking months from now, they're going to have one of these in Arizona for Charlie Kirk in Tucson. And it's to honor him in memoriam. And it's almost the same event. It's kind of freaky to me, but I do find it interesting that maybe it's that, or maybe this is just how Tucker Carlson laughs or expresses. This is how the people on his planet express joy.
Thank you. I never miss a Charlie Kirk event because I love Charlie Kirk. This is more people in one place than I've seen since the last Charlie Kirk.
Again, that may just be the microphone, but he's yelling into that microphone now, and it's not doing it now. It sounds like when he is exuberant and can't hear his own voice over everybody else, and the microphone is just picking up the sounds that his body makes. He goes,
event I was at. So it's hilarious. So I notice everyone's been talking about Epstein tonight, and I want to kind of differ from the crowd a little bit in saying that I watched Ben Shapiro yesterday, and no, before you boo me, I thought he made a really solid point. He's like, it happened a long time ago. Who cares? And by the way, we should trust the government and whatever the bureaucrats tell us. And by the way, it's wrong to ask a lot of unauthorized questions. So I just want to go on the record, to say I think that's absurd. And
this is the point. I cut out most of this. Not most. I cut out some of this line. What's up, brother? William. Sir William. What? But he tries to make a joke and realizes he reads the room a little too late and realizes this is not the room to make jokes about Jeffrey Epstein and about Ben Shapiro. Again, this is a completely different conservative commentator who's, as far as I know, isn't there. And talking about how Ben Shapiro, is now suddenly a company man for the Trump administration and is willing to let go of the Epstein files and bury it. And he looks around to the room, and as you can see him reading the room going, oh, you're not that group. All right. And he starts playing to a different room. He shifts his narrative pretty much on a dime. And this is where he goes with it.
it's exactly the kind of thinking that
Again, this conversation will later be specifically the reason why, at the end of the day, a complaint gets put into Donald Trump that winds up with an angry phone call to Charlie Kirk the next day saying, "The fuck did you just do? You put these conservatives who campaigned with me, who helped me to get elected, and got them up there into a, quote, Jeffrey Epstein grievance fest. And that is not to happen again." And then within a matter of days, Charlie Kirk allegedly by August 4th, this is July 11th, by August 4th, Charlie Kirk finds himself at a dinner with Bill Ackman, billionaire, hedge fund manager who happens to be Jewish, and the head of the UK Lawyers for Israel, screaming at him for being an enemy to Israel and telling him specifically, hey, Elijah, and telling him specifically that they do that at his America Fest coming up in December, which they don't know, or do they, that Erica Kirk is going to wind up managing and hosting and headlining for, because Charlie Kirk is going to be gone. They tell him by the time that December lineup comes up, they want Tucker Carlson off the list. They want him to go away. And this apparently is the speech that sets all that in motion.
I personally voted against in the last election. I don't like to vote, but I did vote this time. And I don't like to vote because I don't believe in any of them. And this time I really felt like I know Trump well. I love Trump personally. And what we were looking at was just so off. That's really at the heart of why the Epstein thing is so distressing. I mean, the guy was some weird sex freak who was abusing girls. We knew that. But the fact that the U.S. government, the one that I voted for, refused to take my question seriously and instead said, "Case closed, shut up, conspiracy theorist," was too much for me. And
Now, what I cut out here, but just to keep you up to date here on this little talk he's giving, he goes on a rant about how during the Biden administration, people tried to shut him up by just calling him racist and saying that you're racist, so you're wrong. And he's trying to make the position that, how am I wrong?
I don't think.
And that he doesn't, and that in the that now that the Trump administration has taken over, he had apparently expected different, and he feels like he's getting more of the same. That's the point, because, and as he is clearly insinuating here, and will continue to, he pissed off the wrong group. Now he wants to, or the wrong individuals, the wrong persons. Now he seems to be pointing to a group of people, which is gross, like an ethnic group of people, but it's probably down to a handful of people, but certainly not from just one ethnic group, I wouldn't think.
The rest of us should be satisfied with that. And by the way, let me just say really quickly, because I was so mad about it that I think I found out part of what's going on. And I think the truth, for whatever it's worth, in case you're interested, is that the DOJ didn't release lots of incriminating sex videos with Epstein and his billionaire pals because they don't have them. They don't have.
That was pretty much exactly what they were insinuating. Remember, again, a year ago, we didn't have access to as many Epstein files as we have, which is still not nearly all of them to this day. But once we had some, once there were some that were fed just to keep the wolves at bay and give them enough blood to like start naming names, then we knew that there were videos, that there are images and photographs of wealthy and powerful people working with Jeffrey Epstein, visiting with Jeffrey Epstein, socializing with Jeffrey Epstein, and in very suspicious ways that give credence to a lot of allegations against people from a wide variety of backgrounds. He's got white people. He's got all kinds of people. Okay. He's got, WASPs and Jews and Catholics and atheists, and he's got all kinds of people involved. But it is startling that how many people he's exposing and pointing the finger to just by saying this administration doesn't seem interested, is what he seems to be insinuating to me. And this is my opinion. That how many people, if they are not in the Epstein files themselves, how did they end up in this position, and what are they hiding? What are they covering up?
Have them because when the original search warrant was served.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm getting at. But they keep reaching back into, they think Alex Acosta destroyed a lot of the evidence of Jeffrey Epstein's friends, destroyed the client list, etc. We now know that a lot, sure, it does seem like Alex Acosta was paid to or somehow asked to by somebody cover up Epstein's crimes back in 2007. But we now know there was plenty of material since then that still came out. They're looking and saying, is it that this evidence doesn't exist because Alex Acosta destroyed it or in some way facilitated its destruction, and there are no Epstein files to be had because of Alex Acosta? And then lo and behold, Alex Acosta, who eventually winds up in the first Trump administration, is called out multiple times here by multiple luminaries of the conservative right. And then there's a phone call from Donald Trump. Well, I wonder who called him. I do actually wonder.
So the real question is not, was Jeffrey Epstein a weirdo who was abusing girls? Yes, we can answer that. The real question is, why was he doing this, on whose behalf, and where did the money come from? And those are the questions that need to be answered. And I think it's entirely fair to ask them. And I think the real answer is Jeffrey.
Again, hate me a day. I hate me a day where I agree with Tucker Carlson. I do agree. At least in he's singing this song. And the rest of the time, I hate pretty much everything that comes out of this fool's mouth. Now, something that's interesting that I want to point out here, I think it's pretty well known at this point, but if not, you should really listen to this new book by, this new book, Regime Change, that at this point in time, Tucker Carlson was doing everything he could, pulling as many strings as he could in the Trump administration to stop any prospect of a war with Iran. And the more I listen to it and the more I look at it, I think this guy, it's not just on moral grounds here. It's not that he hates Israel purely, though I'm sure he does. I'm not sure. I don't know that. But He certainly doesn't seem to love him. But it seems to me like he has some kind of interest to protect in Iran.
Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. If pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA. That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things, murdered a bunch of people, participated in the murder of a sitting U.S. president.
Up until this point in this conversation, I don't think anybody had said that. There was a lot of insinuation about anything that they're throwing out Mossad, like casually almost, like Mossad this, Mossad that, Mossad this, Mossad that, Israel this, Israel that. Every time they mention, I mean, it could be the CIA. I mean, they seem to insinuate, but without saying that. But as if to say, well, the CIA wouldn't take out one of our own citizens, just willy-nilly because they were ordered to, and then reminding everybody, well, it has happened before. And nobody wants to say that in a way that insinuates, and it might happen in a Trump administration. It wouldn't be beyond the Trump administration to say, this guy is in the way, shut him up.
It's got a whole trail of crimes. So criticizing the behavior of a government agency does not make you a hater. It makes you a free person. It makes you a citizen. You're allowed to do that because you're not a slave, you're a citizen. And you have a right to expect that your government will not act against your interests, and you have a right to demand that foreign governments not be allowed to act against your interest.
Get this Democrat off the stage.
Where people feel like they can't just say, like, what the hell is this? You have the former Israeli prime minister living in your house. You have all
I mentioned that, right? Remember that? I mentioned that.
this contact with the foreign government. Were you working on behalf of Mossad?
And now we know that his connections with Ehud were Ehud Barak, this former prime minister who did live part-time. Sometimes when he was in New York, he would stay with Jeffrey Epstein in Jeffrey Epstein's very nice brownstone up in, where he was, rubbing elbows with some of the wealthiest people in Manhattan. And I say it that way. No, I don't. And he's calling that. Now we know that one of the people that is connecting these two personalities, Epstein and Barak, not the president of the United States, the former prime minister of Israel, is Steve Bannon, who will speak at this event the next day.
And that none of this was actually a foreign intel operation, and that there was no blackmail involved, that actually Bill Gates was just hanging on the island because the weather was especially good. No one was videotaped doing anything immoral or illegal, and then that was used against them to get them to obey. If all of that is false, then just tell me how it's false. But don't call me a lunatic. What about the Epstein story is so uniquely infuriating?
Again, there was footage from on that island, on Epstein Island, Little St. James, or whatever it was. There was footage from on that island. It was taken, we now know. At that point in time, they're just talking about it. This footage from a documentary that never got made that was coordinated by text message, extensive text messages that I've seen in the Epstein files between Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon, who again is speaking at this event.
And I'll just say, I mean, I've never met Epstein, but I mean, I know a million people who knew Jeffrey Epstein. It is true that he was around. Like, everyone knew Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think I was cool enough to actually meet him, but like, he was just...
I mean, you notice that Tucker Carlson he has a tendency to mention more than he means to or ought to. Now, at this point, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he is taking questions from the audience. He's basically, I think he's the last speech of the night at that point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He's the last talk of the night. And this is apparently the conversation that puts Charlie Kirk's, this is apparently the speech that puts Charlie Kirk's life into a tailspin. He starts taking these questions from the audience, and they aren't having anything about talking about family values and, the price of homes. It gets mentioned multiple times. I think that it's great that they're talking about this. The thing they're passionate about at this conference is talking about how the economy is failing, yes, in these wee early months of the Trump administration, because young people are not able to buy homes. I agree 100%. I think everybody can agree to that. I think this is a message that they have adopted as, hey, mention this as many times as possible. Again, this is not a good thing for the current administration. So it's not surprising you're going to get an angry phone call from somebody saying, shut up about this. But does that angry phone call stop at an angry phone call? Because in Charlie Kirk's case, it doesn't seem to have been. His life suddenly tailspins into, you're going to talk to this rich person or that rich person, and they're going to set you straight on what you can say and what you can't say, and who you're going to bring in to say what. And Tucker Carlson is the one they're going to mention. So this is definitely that conversation. Now, watch as he takes one final question from a guy who you're going to apparently hear his email address. Maybe throw an email. I thought about throwing an email out to him. Let's see.
Just a guy who's kind of circulating around, like this rich guy who knew everybody. I'll tell you what it is. It's the frustration of normal people watching a certain class of people get away with everything every single time.
Amen.
That's what it is. And that drives me absolutely bonkers. But
me too. I hate a day where I agree with Tucker Carlson. I hate that day.
Unfairness of it drives you crazy. And it's particularly galling in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and the whole constellation of people around Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, what did you just say there, buddy? What's this? The whole constellation of people around Jeffrey Epstein. Are people really supposed to have forgotten that at this point in time, they've all seen pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein? They've seen footage of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump partying back in like the 90s, that they know that Donald Trump's name appears on manifests on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, that there are all of these allegations of multiple people who accuse Donald Trump of having assaulted them. And it's like, and then you're surprised that there are meetings and phone calls saying Tucker Carlson is out. You don't invite him to events anymore.
All of whom seem to be getting away with scams. And how do you know they're getting away with scams? I'll tell you how, because they're useless and they're rich.
Again, another reminder, this is mere months since there were multiple convictions against Donald Trump for committing fraud when he was running for president the first time. His company was indicted and convicted of fraudulent business practices. His long-term accountant, who worked for both him and his father, was put into prison for and exposed in the process of going to prison, that he committed multiple frauds, that the organization was built on fraud, and that Donald Trump was at the head of that. This is all dangerous stuff for a conservative firebrand of any kind to bring up at this very tender and sensitive moment, where the eye is on this organization to say, when the Democrats, the press, everybody may come out and say, Pam Bondi botched the Epstein investigation, but you shut up about it. And they're not. This is the event where they're like, maybe Republican today, maybe conservative, yes, but American, and American enough to say the government doesn't tell me what I can or cannot say. Well, this is the moment where the backlash does seem to come around to aimed at Tucker Carlson. But of course, because it's Turning Point USA's events that he's speaking at, Charlie Kirk is the one in the middle.
So how do you come to a place where some of the least impressive, most useless people who have no actual skills become billionaires?
What are you talking about, dude?
How's that legitimate?
What are you talking
about?
If
you ask this question, at least in Washington, it's like, oh, well, yeah, it sounds like you're a socialist. Sounds like socialism. Yeah, okay, I'm a socialist now. All right. How do Bill Ackman, a pretty impressive guy? I know Bill Ackman. No.
Let me put this back up. My StreamYard is glitching on me here. Let me put it back up in there. Oh my gosh. Nothing here is working. Hold on. Let me switch here. I'll be right back. There we go. And something's happening. The tech is glitching. Oh my gosh. It won't let me add it back into the stage. I'm not a superstitious person, but holy crap. Okay, speaker view. Hold on, I'm going to take me out. Show my video anymore. I'm not a superstitious person, but I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. I'm gonna have to remove that whole video. You like that, Elijah? That was funny. That was an office joke. I am ashamed. Let me try re-adding this whole damn video. No, it's not from the Horror folder. It's on the desktop. It's on the desktop. I don't know, because I put everything in there. Let's see if I can add it back. But it really does not want to load this video anymore. It's glitching out, you guys. Hold on. Let me try adding a whole new scene. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can cue this back up. It's at 22:27. We're going to try this. All right, here we go.
Progressive, that's it. And I think, well-connected, super aggressive people deserve a fair living like everybody else. But if you're accruing $9 million just because
I want
you're...
people to see him say that again. We're going to show this one more time at great personal risk here. We're going on 2 hours here. This is going to be the last stretch before we make our last social commentary on the situation. And I just want to clarify. I will close up by clarifying why I decided this definitely has to be part of the conversation.
Oh, Bill Ackman's like well-connected and super aggressive. That's it. And I think, well-connected, super aggressive people deserve a fair living like everybody else. But if you're accruing $9 million just because you're willing to do anything, I don't know why we have to pretend that's good.
Again, the name he just dropped is the guy that Charlie Kirk had dinner with less than a month later, a dinner specifically to coordinate and tell him Tucker Carlson doesn't speak at Turning Point USA events anymore. You don't invite him back. He isn't, and specifically says because of the things he says. And that is the person whose name he just said.
Like at some point, the basic economics really matter. And they matter because not that it's bad that rich people are getting richer, it's bad that everyone else is getting poorer.
Again, the only reason anybody knows Tucker Carlson's name or face is because his family comes from old plantation money.
Especially bad, the young people can't afford homes. Let me just put a very precise point on this.
So Charlie Kirk mentions this multiple times, and I think it's worth mentioning. So I actually am surprised to find that I didn't realize that basically the talking point behind this was they have been trying to figure out for whatever reason how to move the administration and or Congress and their own party to start backing housing policies that make it possible for young people to buy homes. So he has to throw it out there because his job, I mean, look, all these people are being paid to be here, I'm sure. And like, obviously his job is to work into the conversation as much as possible that now that the Trump administration has the reins of power, they ought to be using it to make it possible for young people like those in the room to be able to buy homes. Whether or not those people are actually interested in that, that's another thing.
My measure is really simple. I got a bunch of kids. Can they afford houses with full-time jobs at like 27, 28? And the answer is no way. And the answer is that 35-year-olds with really good jobs can't afford a house unless they stretch and go deep into debt.
And it has been that way for some time and through both Republican and Democratic administrations. Can we all agree to that?
And I just think that's a total disaster. That's a complete disaster. So anyway, that's my answer. I'm against socialism, obviously. That's why I'm worried about our system, because I think we're about to get socialism if we don't pull back from this.
Boy, sometimes when Tucker Carlson says something, he says a whole damn mouthful of it. Did you hear that, what he just said? He basically is saying that the economic situation in the United States right now, during the Trump administration, it's a panic. You hear this. Donald Trump is saying basically the same thing, where he says, like, communism is the most threatening thing, the thing that is like the greatest existential threat to America right now. And like they're saying that, well, they're not just talking about the rhetoric of people on the left. Frankly, Democrats aren't nearly that left. What they're saying is that the economic situation that they are in, if it doesn't get resolved, it's the only way out is going to be socialism. That how can you expect people to not talk about the government needs to start working in our interests and doing something for us in a system where you have to have a job to have healthcare, you have to have a job to have housing, you have to have a job to eat food, you have to have a job to get an education, and all these things are more expensive in this country than in just about any country in the world. And then while at the same time empowering people who are replacing human beings with robots and with AI agents at an alarming pace, with absolutely no conversation about if the economy is built on consumerism and you start replacing workers with non-human workers, with non-human labor, who are you going to sell to? It's no good to have an Amazon warehouse full of robots if Amazon doesn't have human beings to sell to, unless you're going to start selling to robots. And so there's the conversation that he's having is exactly the conversation that Zoran Mamdani is having, is exactly the conversation that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is having, is exactly the conversation that Bernie Sanders has been fighting for since the fucking 1960s. And so it's like, and so he's looking around saying, it's not that the crisis is here because there are people on the left. He's saying the crisis is here because the administration on the right isn't solving the problem. And then lo and behold, surprise, surprise, the next day, Charlie Kirk gets a phone call that starts a pattern of wealthy and connected individuals saying, Tucker Carlson needs to shut up. And so, and if you don't make that happen, you're going to get held accountable. And yet, the main suspect in the ending of Charlie Kirk's life is Tyler Robinson, because his partner is a furry, and people don't know the difference between a furry and a person who is trans.
Right,
exactly.
We got one more question.
One more question.
Last
Hey, Tucker,
question.
I'm a big fan. I would love to work for you. I did give my resume to Steve Bannon. It would be hilarious if you two fought over me.
Boy, that did not age well. Boy, that did not age well. I would love to. I'm at the end of this. The last thing you're going to hear is this young person shouting out their email address. I'm seriously considering sending them an email and saying, dude, I would love to know how you feel about things right now.
Saying that would be great.
It'd be like a real bitchy cat fight.
It'd be a hell of a story. Yeah.
They're joking about a man who is dirtier in the Epstein files than just about any other person we know so far.
My family has fought for this country. I voted MAGA 3 times. My generation, just like
Useless, and they're rich. So how did Bill Ackman...
Steve Bannon, if you didn't catch that. I accidentally hit the play bar instead of the play button. Sorry.
Just like you said, is convinced they can't trust the institutions and the administration, even this administration.
Hold on, let's get that again. That's
one more
important.
question.
One more question.
Hey, Tucker, I'm a big fan. I would love to work for you. I did give my resume to Steve Bannon. It would be hilarious if you two fought over me. I'm just saying. That would be great.
It'd be like a real bitchy cat fight.
It'd be a hell of a story, yeah. My family has fought for this country. I voted MAGA 3 times. My generation, just like you said, is convinced it can't trust the institutions and the administration, even this administration after last Monday. America first means America first, not foreign governments, not rich pedophiles. Basically, my questions are this. How does anybody possibly expect us to have any trust in our government, pay taxes, accept draft orders if these elites are not held accountable, right?
Boy, howdy. Young man, you said a mouthful there. Boy, I never thought I'd be so entertained by a Turning Point USA conversation. Some things are not about left or right. Some things are not about R's and D's. Some things are not about blue and red. Some things are about black and white. Well, not black and white even, but are about the facts. It's about the situation. It's about the green, buddy. It's about how you cannot have this much concentration of wealth and expect people to not say, this is not what makes a healthy cycle. This is a vicious cycle.
My great-grandfather killed Nazis, and I brag about it. My mother's doctor was a Holocaust survivor, and everyone calls Trump a Nazi. My family in Chicago and my family in Ireland, which are both liberal hellholes, right? And it's pretty convenient that if he did criticize Israel, everyone could just say, look, I told you so. And by far the most important, why can I burn an American flag in my country, but I get a mark by my name if I burn Israel's? Like,
I think that's an entirely fair question.
Now watch him answer it.
It's total. And you go online and people are so mad. People go crazy after a while if you totally ignore their concerns, if you call them names rather than answering their questions. I really think we need to agree, and this would include the Department of Justice, which is running around, it's got task forces attacking people. It's like, stop. Continuation of identity politics is the most.
If it feels like I cut out the answer to the question, just know I didn't. I cut down like this long rant of this. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he's hungry. Maybe he didn't prepare for this question. But it seems like a pretty straightforward question.
Destructive thing we can do. We are all the same under the law. There is nobody, rich, poor, no matter what your religion, what your color, who's held to a different legal standard, period.
Is that true? I mean, is that true? Isn't this whole conversation we're having? They had a full day of basically these young people, who all of them conservative MAGA kids, Christians, praying to Jesus at every possible chance, screaming about their life, giving their life to God, talking about, okay, this is still a country where we can't afford health care. This is a country where we are spending insane amounts of our parents' money or the bank's money or our future money to not have a job to get to. And it does feel like the government's not doing anything about that while people in the government are actively working to cover up for Jeffrey Epstein, which was, it's starting to feel that the correction that Turning Point USA seems to be making here is to say, it's starting to feel like everything we voted for we're getting the opposite. And it's all to protect a small handful of billionaires. And we're sick of people calling us socialists because we said that.
Has to be the rule, or else this country will fall apart into warring tribes.
My email is ryanscottcasey@gmail. If I could send you my cover letter, I really.
Ryan Scott Casey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
That was the end of the event. That was it. So here we are. Again, I'm Exmo Joe, the Zelfire Agency, a mission of the Church of Korihor. This was all for commentary purposes. Make sure that you know that you can watch the entire 5-hour broadcast from NTD. You find them on YouTube, and all this content that I am citing from for commentary purposes only, and only a very small amount of the content that I had to submit myself to, so you didn't have to, belongs to Turning Point USA and or probably Turning Point Action, probably, but also NTD, who streamed that event. The day after got even more wild. The day that Donald Trump, now we now know Donald Trump called Charlie Kirk to tell him what the hell happened. How did you guys wind up hosting an event that made all of these people who are my supporters, my voters, my base, start suspecting me of covering up for Jeffrey Epstein? And then 2 months later, Charlie Kirk was dead. Suspicious? I don't know. I report, you decide. So, yeah. It's Elijah marvels. Hi, Elijah. How are you? There's no seating in here in this particular room. There's a chair in the next room. Those of you who are curious, this is the somewhat of a preview of the status of the house. Yes, I still have bare insulation up on the ceiling. The ceiling's going to happen. We have some floor tiles and discovered that the floor tiles don't stick to the underlayment that we purchased. So we are switching to the flooring plan. Every wall is framed in, mostly. We have doors for the walls. This is the off-grid house that Elijah and I are building in Appalachia. And hey, Elijah, yeah, no problem, dude. And enjoying life. You start school on Monday out here. And yeah. And yeah, Sir William is here. Sir William Shakespeare. Anyways, so that's our presentation. What do you think? What do you think, Sir William? Give us something bardic. Give us a bardic response. Say huzzah. Do you bite your thumb at me, sir? Anyways, we have the Church of Korihor, a spiritual congregation for godless people. It was nice seeing you. Thanks for showing up. Make sure that you go back and watch it. Shall we end with a spiritual hymn? Would you guys like to hear a hymn in development? Ooh, that's a good idea. Yes, Elijah does not approve of the production of the hymns. This is a hymn in development. You're going to see that it is by Suno. You're going to be one of some of the people who know the big, deep, dark secret. I use Suno to make these things. Where's the downloads? I don't even have a lyric video for this yet. I just have the one produced by Suno. Stop downloads. Oh yeah, I have it here. Here it is. Which one is it? Is it this one or this one? I think it's this one. Okay. This is the hymn in production, Too Good for God. Thank you guys for showing up. And remember, what shall we say? Fight like hellfire.
Inscribed upon my chest, put a smile on my face, whatever was in my breast. But then I came home, having seen through the lie, oh, carrying better news, oh, better news. A Korihor till the day I die, oh, till the day I die. Oh, I know better than those I worship with, but I never heard a child unlike Joe Smith. I'm not leaving the sin, not for the higher buzz. No, I'm not perfect, but I learned that I was too good for God. I'm too good for God. Keep your prayers, for I know I am too good for God. Too damn good for God, though it ain't perfect. I chose this godless life because I was and am damn right I am. Korihor till the day I die. Sister, kick that habit. A friend, throw that book aside. Muhammad was a liar and Moses was a lie. Oh, oh, till the day